I feel like Pixie might single-handedly fix the lack of Aichi's availability in Europe through her through her mentioning it alone, which is so valid.
Hi guys, welcome to LoveCast, the BL podcast. I'm your host Pixie, and with me are my co-hosts Kayla and Alexa.
Hi.
Yay! So we are jumping into our top 5 picks of 2024. And that's going to be exciting because for me, I was going through all the shows that I liked seeing last year, and I'm even surprised by myself. So,
Yeah, I was saying before we started recording, I think I said this in our other episode too. I really struggled with putting my list together this year cuz I liked a lot, but it was really hard for me to decide which ones were actually like my top 5. And then ordering that top 5 was really hard as well. So I did manage to do it, but I also have a ton of honorable mentions cuz I was like I enjoyed a lot last year, but it was hard to narrow down which ones were my actual favorites of the year. So I struggled. And it was not
Mhm.
like that for me last year because my favorites were so obvious for me last year.
Yeah, same.
Mm. Yeah. I
Yeah,
had
and
like the
and
opposite
I,
where like
mhm.
I had the same problem but the opposite reason where I didn't like a lot of things. So I had difficulty
Mm,
putting together a fuller list beyond like 3.
Mm,
yeah.
that's fair. Okay, so we're gonna start at number 5 and then work ourselves up. So I'll just start. At my number 5 is Jack and Joker.
Mm.
Oh.
I I was really looking forward to it, and I was also feeling like, okay, this can be really bad. Like I had such high expectations that I was just like, oh, like there was no other way to go than down almost. But but the show delivered. Honestly, I
Hmm.
I watched the first 2 episodes and I kind of fell off.
Hmm.
Because I think there's a lot of world building in the beginning, and it just sort of at the time I had some issues concentrating, and I
Hmm.
just couldn't get into it. But then I went back and watched it when it was done airing, and I had a whole different experience. I think it was so well done. I think that even though it feels like it's long, a lot of things are happening, it feels relevant for the story. And I mean, a lot of the shows that we watched last year had an issue with developing the plot, developing the story. It felt like
Hmm.
rushed mostly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I appreciated a show that actually took the time to develop the story, develop the characters, and like the things that were happening weren't just like fan servicey. It was there for a reason. And
Hmm.
honestly, Jin did such a good job. He's he's developed so much as an actor. Like you can see from his first role in Love Mechanic to now that like he's done the work and he's gotten so good. And War is just out of this world. Like War is one of my top actors. Period.
Mine too. Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
No, love mechanics. I feel like what you were saying, like when you've been waiting for something for so long
mhm.
and excited for it for so long, it's almost scary because you're like, I've been hyping this up for like we were been waiting for Jack and Joker for like over a year, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
So like it's really easy to build up those expectations and then feel really, really disappointed by them if it doesn't live up to them. But I think, and we talked about it in our deep dive that we did with Alyssa
Mhm.
and Jordy, but I definitely agree that for me, it lived up to the expectations of what I wanted it to be. So I think it's,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely
Yeah.
a solid show.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um so I this year I'm going to switch it up a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like when it comes to my top BLs of 2024, I've been like preaching about them way more than enough lately. Like everyone I think knows my top shows from last year. And so I'm afraid of being a little too repetitive and like rehashing the same talking points over and over again. I just feel like it would be really boring to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that I'm going to just like straight up tell you guys what my top 5 were. And then
Mhm.
I'm going to elaborate on some of it. Some of it. And then I have a bunch of like random shows that I did enjoy. I wouldn't say that I like loved them, but when they were airing, I
Mhm.
really liked them. So
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
yeah. That being said, um, my number 5 was Only Boo.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mhm. Mhm.
loved Only Boo. This was like
Mhm.
my I think this was like my only high school type series on my list that's like
Mm-hmm.
very cutesy, maybe even like stereotypically so. It's the usual kind of like GMMTV high school romance, but I just
Mhm.
feel like C and Keen just made it what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just so cute. I love them together. They have so much chemistry.
Yeah.
They're actors, the characters,
Yeah.
they really complement each other like so well. I love
Mhm.
how like physically affectionate they are throughout the series. They don't
Yep.
shy away from any of that. And it's always
Mhm.
just like very wholesome and
Mhm.
sweet.
Mhm.
And I've heard a lot of people like say this, but I agree that it like came at a time when I needed it a lot. I needed
Yeah.
something
Mm-hmm.
that
Mhm.
was almost like a palate cleanser.
Mhm.
But still, like, even then, I feel like it's more than that. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
just so cute overall. I did like the story a
Yeah.
lot. I love the like idol training type thing. I love
Mhm.
that it like spans across like a couple of years. But yeah, that
Mhm.
was
Mm-hmm.
my number 5. I love Only Boo. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't know what else to say about that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. I'm not gonna say a lot because it will come up on my list too.
we have overlap. See,
Fair, fair.
We have some overlap.
honestly, I feel like
Yeah.
I can just like go through them as we have been and just like be a little brief
Mhm.
and then use my other ones
Mhm.
as honorable mentions. So we can
Yep.
move
And
on
elaborate on
now.
those.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, my number 5 was also in the same vein of what Kayla was talking about with Only Boo. This was my comfort show for the year, and that is We Are. Um,
Mhm.
so
Wow.
kind of similar to Only Boo, and it's like that very stereotypical GMMTV format set in university
Mhm.
with multiple pairings. And of course, like I was tuning in because Ooh and Boom are in it, and I
Mhm.
love them and I love their characters. They were, my favorite part of the show. But I also just genuinely really enjoyed what the show had to say about friendship. I am a slice of life show type of person. I've always
Mhm.
really enjoyed shows that just kind of like follow a group of people just like navigating whatever period of life they might be in. And so I
Mhm.
really enjoyed how the friendship was very much a forefront of this show and kind of bringing these two separate groups together and making them into one big friend gang. And of course, there was all like the different relationships, and it was like it's a fan service show. Like I'm not going to deny that it was very much like a fan service show. Like the actual
Mhm.
plot itself, there wasn't too much going on aside from the couples getting together being the plot of the show. Um, but they were all characters that I really enjoyed watching them get together. Like aside from Owen Boom, I've always really enjoyed Pond and Pooin. I've enjoyed
Mhm.
the projects that they've been in. I liked Winnie and Satang in My School President, although I didn't super follow up with them after that. So like this was a nice way for me to like get to see more of them acting. And then Mark and Poon were just like, they were kind of like that comedic relief couple in the show. So like they kind of added
Mhm.
that dynamic. And I don't know, I just like it was 16 episodes. I know a lot of people thought it was too long, but I think for me, this show kind of came at a point where I had a lot of not great shit happening in real life. So like just tuning in
Mhm.
for like 45 minutes of cheesy romance every Wednesday for 4 months straight was what I needed at the time. And it got me back into reading fanfic. Like I was looking up like fanfic for the show. So like it got me back in my fanfic era and all this kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But yeah, it was a really comforting show and I enjoyed watching it and I enjoyed how soft it made me feel each week. So it
Mhm.
was at my number 5.
Mm.
Yeah.
Get it. I have no comments because I didn't finish
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say I don't think either of you watched it, and that's fine.
I watched some episodes because it was
Same.
airing whenever I was visiting Shar and she was into it.
Mm.
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
Right.
I've only that may be like episode 3, 4, and 5, so I don't even have full
Yeah,
Right.
context of the show.
Mhm.
right.
Yeah. No, I gave it a chance, but it's just a little bit too slice of life for me.
Hmm.
Mm.
So I just couldn't get into it, but I understand the appeal of it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Let's just say that. Okay. So my number 4, and this is might be a surprise because it would have been higher on the list if not for one thing. It's The Time of Fever.
Okay.
Mm.
I absolutely loved the pure tension and longing and just storytelling of it. And I think The Time of Fever is a lot better than Unintentional Love Story.
I agreed.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So I there are so many reasons I love this, and we talked a lot about that in our review. So I'm not going to go a lot into it, but I want to explain why it's only on the fourth place.
Mhm.
And that's because it was so hard for me to watch it. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't available in my country. So I had to like watch it illegally at first for us to do the review even, and then I actually watched a reactor reacting to
Yeah.
it on his Patreon
So-
Oh,
because then I could watch it in HD.
so
And
funny.
that was yeah. I dude, it's still not available in my country, and it's
Mm.
mm. So that's why it's on the fourth place. But yeah,
I feel like Pixie might single-handedly fix the lack of Aichi's availability in Europe through her through her mentioning it alone, which is so valid. But anytime Pixie cannot watch a show on Aichi, she is gonna make it known. And I feel like one of these
yes,
days Aichi is gonna see the clip and it's gonna
yes,
make a difference.
yes. Please share, people. Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, that the tension in that show, like,
Mm. Mm.
oh my god. I still
Yeah.
like every time I think
Mm.
about it, I'm just like they did so much in those like short.
Yeah.
It was only 6 episodes too. Like it was even
Yeah.
shorter than the typical
Mhm.
Yeah.
Korean BL because I think it was
And we
a
knew
movie.
the ending. We knew
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
freaking ending. And it's still like I did not expect it to capture me like that because even though I don't mind spoilers, I'm fine with watching shows that I know the ending of and everything.
Mhm.
But there's like a predictability to it. But this it just like I didn't expect the raw emotions of the actors being
Mm.
so intense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And they made it really, really compelling. Like they did
Yeah.
a lot with that chemistry and the way they told their story.
Yeah. And I mean the
Mhm.
scene in the school in the nurse office,
Yes.
that is honestly, like if you explain that scene to someone without them watching it, it's a very basic scene. Like
Hmm.
it's a very basic thing you see in a lot of BLs, especially manga. But the I that scene is just like it's singed in my brain. I and I think the majority of the reason why it's so good is just purely the actors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I agree.
Mhm. My scene from that show that's singed in my brain is definitely the fruit eating one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Ah, I love that show. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, my number 4 is a show that I have been really hardcore advocating for. um,
Mhm.
Maruhuyo Project.
Hmm.
Everyone needs to watch Maruhuyo Project. I I don't know what else to say. I just think that everyone
Mhm.
needs to watch it. It's basically about this kid named King, and he gets sent off to an island to live with his grandma and his mom because he like gets in trouble for like standing up to this like homophobic dean or like teacher at school, whatever. But he gets sent away. And obviously, like, he's on a very rural island now. It's a very conservative type of like society, very religious society. So it's kind of him
Mhm.
making friends with all of these people who are also marginalized like him, and them all trying to not rewrite history, but unearth the truth of the history on the island. Because there's a
Mm.
lot of like, there's a lot of covering up of what like the real history of the island is. And then of course that like gets into a history lesson on like the actual colonization, and like how I guess like Catholicism really like erased
Mhm.
these groups of people who were already existing, um, and kind of villainize them. So it's
Mhm.
really good. Like I'm making it sound super complicated, but it's not. It's pretty. It's a pretty straightforward story of just like them all trying to be courageous and fight against the system in the ways they can because they're still just like students. And
Mhm.
everyone
Mm.
in the series is so good, so good. There's
Mhm.
a lot of like representation within the LGBTQ plus sphere. And I
Yeah.
just love that it's from the Philippines. And the Philippines we haven't gotten a lot from in recent years. And it's like
Hmm.
actual,
Mhm.
like the budget is pretty good.
Hmm.
So
It's good.
obviously it doesn't have a huge budget, but they worked well with what they had. And honestly, like the
Mhm.
cinematography and everything, the music, it's all so good. I need everyone to watch
Mhm.
this show and make everyone they know watch this show. It's so good.
Yeah,
That's all.
Valid.
I have slowly been watching the show infiltrate Kayla's Discord server because every time they convince someone to watch it, that person is like convincing other people to watch it as well.
Mhm.
And I know that like a lot of people in our Discord server really, really enjoyed it when it was airing as well. So I feel
Mhm.
like seeing Kayla talk about it recently has definitely brought it back on my radar, and I definitely want to
Mhm.
watch it now. So yeah, it sounds like something I would love. Okay, my number 4 for this year was Love for Love's Sake. I feel like I don't really have to say a lot about this one because we just recently did a review on it, and I feel like I said so much of what I enjoyed about that show while we did that review. But I
Mhm.
just think it was a really, really interesting storyline and just a really interesting way to tackle mental health and what it means to be happy and how you where you find happiness and what does happiness mean,
Mhm.
both in terms of like finding happiness in romance, finding happiness in yourself, getting a
Yep.
second chance at life, and like how you can create a second chance for yourself to kind of find
Mhm.
all of these things that you didn't think were possible for you. And the
Mhm.
show just did it in a way that like you didn't really know that's what you were getting into, like such a heavy
Yeah.
type of topic, I guess, when you were getting into it, but
Mhm.
the way they worked it in through like the video game element and this like transmigration into a video game world, which turns out to be something completely different in the end. I think they just did it in a way that was really compelling and didn't necessarily hit you over the head with the themes that they were trying to convey. It all just kind of happened naturally, and it just felt really impactful. Like I said this when we did the
Mhm.
review, that like this was one of the first shows I watched in 2024, and I was still
Mhm.
thinking about it by the end of 2024. So like when that happened, I was like, I know this is something that I need to like is gonna be one of my favorites for the year because it's just stayed in my mind, and the character, especially Cha Yo-woon, him as a character, has just stayed in my mind for so much of this year. So
Mhm.
yeah, I won't rehash it all again. Go watch a review if you want to see more,
Mhm.
but that show is just super, super impactful, and I really am glad I decided to watch it despite not necessarily
Mhm.
knowing what I was getting into at first. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I really love shows that do take a chance into doing something different, and I just like the way they tell the story is so unique that
Hmm.
it's so compelling.
Hmm.
And yeah, I love,
Mhm.
like, we did our review. We all pretty much love that show.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
we all might have we all gave it at least a 4.5, if not all of us
Yeah,
giving it a 5.
yeah.
I can't
Definitely.
remember, but
Mhm,
yeah.
Mhm.
mhm,
Yeah. I had
definitely.
that one as an honorable mention, definitely, so I'm
Hmm.
Same,
glad that it
same.
was on your list.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Okay, so number 3. And this one is one that I don't think you've watched yet. Our Youth,
Hmm.
the
Yeah. I knew that
Japanese
was going
one.
to be on your
I
list.
need to watch it.
Yes. So it's a story between like typical, like, this is a school thing.
Hmm.
It's a delinquent and a top student, and they're both experiencing parent abuse, just differently.
Mm,
So one is getting beaten physically, the other one is getting neglected. Like,
mm,
his parents are never home, like, and they show no care to him or anything like that. So it's interesting to see how they come from like two different um places and sort of use each other to heal, and
mm,
also um figure their lives out and figure their sexualities out. And it's very, because um it's very a story told of how you like experiment. Like, they basically don't know what being gay is
mm,
when everything starts. They just know that it, like, kissing feels good, kind of things, right?
Mm,
mhm,
okay.
But it's very, very emotional, and just like the aesthetic of the show, like the how it's filmed, how it's pretty like dark, but it's with a lot of hope for the future.
mm,
And there's a balance there that's really well done. And the story, how it unfolds, feels very true to how what age they are. And I
Yeah.
think like this is my favorite Japanese BL of all time,
wow.
hands
Wow.
down.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Dethroning My
Yes,
Beautiful Man. That's
yes.
that's
That's a big
hardcore.
deal.
Yes, that is a big deal. That is a big deal. But I was just so how do I describe it? Like, mesmerized by the story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't usually like school BLs, but suddenly
Yeah.
there's a lot of them in my top 5, which is so weird, but that's where we're at. But yeah, I recommend everyone to just watch it because it's so worth it.
Mm.
It's on Gaga Ulala.
I feel like, and this is kind of like getting not necessarily off topic, but I guess being surprised by enjoying so many school BLs. I feel like
Mhm.
where school BLs can benefit is because the setting is
Mm.
sometimes simpler compared to shows that have like a lot of world
Yes.
building or like this
Yeah.
complex like plot that they're trying to build outside like
Mhm.
within the setting and stuff like that. Because school settings, like you're in a school, like you don't really need to
Mhm.
world build that as much, so it
Yeah.
offers more time to like build the characters and build strong
Mhm.
writing. And I feel like that's why while we've seen BL become so much more genre inclusive, some of
Mhm.
those shows are falling flat because they're trying to do so much that they haven't quite
Mhm.
gotten a handle on how to navigate doing these more expansive shows yet. Whereas the school shows, like, because they're simpler, they're able to hone in on more of the stuff that might make the story feel stronger. But yeah,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
Yes.
haven't watched
I
Our Youth
agree.
yet, but it sounds like something that's
It's
right up
so
my
up your
alley.
alley. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. So
Angst, angst, angst. Give me the angst.
angst and youth love. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. Yeah, that definitely checks all the boxes for me. I just need to get around to it. Like, I
Mhm.
know that
That's
I
always
would
what
love
it is
it.
for me too. Just need to find the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the ones I'm going to be a little brief about because I've
Mhm.
talked about them a lot.
Mhm.
Number 3 for me is definitely Jack and Joker.
Mm.
Mhm.
We've already talked about this show so much. I've
Yep.
already talked about this show so much. I feel like there's
Mhm.
nothing else for me to say other than I just love Yin and War. I love the like passion that they had for this project and the time that they put together into creating it. It is just like so elaborate, like what you said, Pixie. There's so much world building,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it could get complicated, but the
Yeah.
way that they did it, it felt really well executed to me. Like
Mhm.
everything felt very like connected. All the issues, because like it tackles so many different issues, but they all felt
Yeah.
really interconnected to me. And like it made sense that like one thing was happening and it was caused by another thing and it was caused by another
Mhm.
thing. Just like life. Like it was like
Yep.
life.
Yep.
um I really liked that it was grounded in reality, I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
I
felt
like
believable.
that. Mhm. I like that it was, I guess, what we usually like consider grittier. I
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. By
Yeah.
BL
But
standards.
by BL standards, grittier, but I guess in the sense that it just like tackled more serious topics.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really don't know what else to say about it. I love all the
Mhm.
characters. I love the
Yeah.
cast. I
Mhm.
think they're all so good.
Yep.
Uh Justice for Save and Hope. Justice for a Tattoo and a Run.
Even their spin-offs.
um, yeah, I really liked
Yeah.
everything that they did with the secondary pairings too. Or
Mhm.
Mhm.
as I would call Tattoo and a Run more of a situationship than anything, but I liked that it
Yeah.
was that.
There
I
was
liked
something
it
going
like
on
that.
there. That's what we do
Mhm.
know. There
Mhm.
was something going on there.
Yeah. Just like all around. I don't think I have any criticism of it, honestly.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed it. It was very
Mhm.
cinematic to me. Every episode, obviously they were very long, but I was tuned in. It felt like I was watching like mini movies every week. And I
Mhm.
just love that it's like action packed. I love it.
Yep. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I've said all that I can say about this show.
Yeah.
That's
Safe
fair.
to say we love Jack and Joker here at LoveCast.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 3 is a show that I genuinely did not think I would like as much as I did, and
Mhm.
that was Monster Next Door,
Mm.
with Big and
Uh,
Park. So I started watching the show after seeing people in our Discord saying that the first 2 episodes were a lot better than they expected.
Yeah.
And so I watched them and I had the same exact thought. And I just feel like the show turned out to be something with so much heart in it. It is once again one that story wise is very simple. Like it's set in a university. It's a pretty
Mm,
classic setup of like the super introverted character meeting the super extroverted, very popular character. Um, and how they come together. But I think because the show made like their personalities, like it was very like heavily focused on how you navigate being with someone who's different from you without changing them. So, a lot of these shows where you have like the introvert character or the extrovert character, like it's all about how do I accommodate this person? How do I
mm,
change myself to be better for this person? Or they end up coming out of their shell by the end of the show. But I think
mhm,
Monster Next Door was very much about how all of the things that make you introverted that you might think are not necessarily good, or all of the aspects of being extroverted that you think might be over the top, are things that make you you, and things that like
mhm,
your partner shouldn't want to change about you. So it was
mhm,
very much about like these two characters like learning to understand each other rather than trying to change themselves to be better for the other person, or feeling like they need to hide aspects of themselves. So I just really appreciate the way they communicated with each other, and just like the way they navigated their relationship. Big as Got is like one of the top green flag characters of 2024. I think he was just such peak golden retriever energy, such a sweet character. And I thought Diao was, as someone who is also extremely introverted, like I really related to a lot of his character. And I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like they portrayed, I think introversion can also often be portrayed as a negative thing in shows compared to the
mhm,
extrovert character who like everyone loves. So I think like they did a good job of showing like why Diao is also a great character despite being an introvert, and how being an introvert isn't a negative aspect of his personality. So yeah, I just felt like it had a lot of heart, and it was a very unexpected show. Like I got very unexpectedly attached to it and their story, and I thought that they, despite it being like on the simpler side plot wise, I felt like it being simple like allowed you to really connect with the characters more, and I just like the way they handled the plots that they did include. So yeah, it was just very very much one I did not think I would tune into at all, like when I first watched the pilot trailer way back. And definitely not one that I thought I would connect
mhm,
with as much as I did.
mm,
And it made me really enjoy Big and Park as actors, and made me really look forward to what we'll see from them in their next project. So
mhm,
yeah, very unexpected gem that ended up in the top of my list for this year. So
mhm.
mhm.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't watch that one, but I love Big and Park's social media presence. Like, I watch
They're
all of
so
their
fun.
TikToks. I love their photo shoots that they do. Like, their personalities are really lovable, so it makes me want to watch
Yeah,
it.
they're cute. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm gonna
Yeah.
do when TikToks gets banned and I can't see their TikToks anymore.
Yeah, for everyone wondering, the TikTok account for Lovecast will still be there.
Yeah.
I don't live in America, so it's fine. And
But
I'll
it's not
if
fine for me.
Alexa or Kayla wants to post content, they'll give it to me and I'll just post it.
We
So
found a
we're
workaround,
fine.
but yeah.
And I'm
Mhm.
sorry to all the Americans who won't be able to see it.
So we gotta follow us on our other platforms.
Mhm.
But okay. So,
Number
second
two.
place. Second place. We have only Boo. I
Oh,
had
Okay.
wow.
to put it very high because there wasn't a show that made me so invested as I was watching Only Boo.
Mm,
And I think it mostly was because of the humor. Because
mm,
in general, I don't like humorous BL. I don't think they do it well normally. As I've never connected with humoristic BLs before, but this just perfect. And I think like the I commented while I was watching it. I did write in our Discord several times in the Only Boo room. Um, the the rampant obvious flirting, just loved
Yes.
it. Like having a show that's just so obviously flirting, and it was actually
Mhm.
so funny, the flirting, that it was perfect. And yes, we've done a review on this too, so if you want to hear more, you can go watch that. But yeah, I Only Boo was great.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree. I have it on my honorable mentions, so like I'll say a little bit
Mhm.
then, but yeah. No,
Mhm.
absolutely. I feel like we keep so many of the shows on our list we've talked about in other forums. So I feel like I'm just going to need to keep like linking in cards to like this is where
Yeah.
we talked about this one
Right,
and this is where
right.
we talked about this one, but it's hard to not feel like you're rehashing stuff that you've already said, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm glad that we all agree Only Boo was amazing.
Mhm.
It seems like a
Yeah.
lot of people feel that way. It was really
Mhm.
popular last
I
year.
feel like
Yeah.
I feel like people didn't watch it because they kind of expected it to be, I guess, the typical high school BL,
Yeah.
and like not everyone loves that. I get it,
Mhm.
but I feel like everyone who did watch it was like, "Oh, there was something really, really good going on here,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
they
didn't
knew once
expect
you get
it
in,
to
you
be.
know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't expect it at all. I thought I
Hmm.
wouldn't like it, but
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
Mm,
Mm.
okay. Well, my number 2 is another one that I've already talked about so much. My
Mhm.
stand-in.
Mhm.
um, I this show just had such like an emotional slash mental impact on me last year, and
Hmm.
honestly is still having a remaining impact on me. um I recently was watching it again, and I was like writing up my little notes, and I just kept crying because I was like, oh my god, this show, like the messages in it are just so good.
Mm.
Um, and I just love Joe. I love Ming and Joe, but I really love Joe. I love his character. One of my favorite
Mm.
characters, maybe in a BL. I like that he is kind of like low key. Doesn't really like care about living this like super successful life, but then he gets swept up in it, and he's kind of like, what the hell? I didn't even ask for any of this, and now all this bad stuff is happening to me. And how he just kind of like loses control of his life, and it takes a really
Mm.
long time for him to gain control of his life, but another life that technically
Hmm.
isn't his.
Mm.
um what else do I even say about this I haven't said? I still think Ming is iconic. I can't
Mm.
ever hate him.
Yeah.
I know he's crazy. I know it might make me a hypocrite, but
Mhm.
I seriously will egg him on.
I
Um,
mean, I think we've established that we do sometimes really like toxic characters.
oh, definitely, definitely. And I still attest to the fact that Chong is the real villain of
He's
that
the villain.
show. He is the
Mhm.
real red flag. But
Shout out to Mac.
shout out to Mac. He played the role too well. You
Mm.
like
Yeah.
really love to hate him. But yeah,
Hmm.
Mhm.
I just love the story. I love that it's another like kind of like meta industry type story. That yeah, it has a lot of like similar themes as War of Y, honestly, which is still one of my favorite shows. But it's just
Hmm.
like the basic entertainment industry version of it. And
Mhm.
it's just, there's so much drama. There's so much drama about the entertainment industry, and I love it. Um, and yes, my stand in. Emotionally wrecking. It's a lot to handle, but I sat through it, and I loved it, and I love to suffer.
Mhm.
In conclusion.
In conclusion.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I might as well just get into it because my number two was also my stand-in. I figured I knew this one, Kayla and I were probably gonna obviously overlap on because we both have talked about the show so
100%.
much. And I don't really have much more to add than Kayla already did. Um, but yeah, I just what I've realized with my top two shows is that I get attached to characters that I feel like I could go to war for because I
Mm.
felt like I was in the trenches trying to get people, not even get people, like trying to articulate why I think Joe made the choices he did as a character because I think he got a lot of
Yeah.
flack for making the decision to like
Mm.
go back to Ming and his multiple times basically. And so I feel like I just really was attached to I feel like I understood him, and when I understand the character, and I feel like not necessarily that people were misinterpreting him because I know that everyone can have their own interpretation of a character's actions, but I just felt like I could really like I could go to war for him, and he was such a good person in the show, and he just was just like really compelling. And Poom as Joe was extremely compelling to watch. This was my first introduction to Poom as an actor. And I think it's his first BL, although he's been like an actor in the industry for a while. And he just was, I love Up so much, but like Poom stole the show as Joe. Poom as Joe just like stole the show. Um, and so like getting to be introduced to him and Up and Poom as like an acting pairing who I've been really enjoying. Um, yeah, I mean, like Kayla said, it's emotionally devastating. Like you will go through the ringer with these characters and the shit that Joe goes through and the shit that they go through together and the decisions that are made. But I just felt like it was so compelling to watch and I was so like into the characters and understanding why they were making the choices that they did that it
Mm.
just I loved every second of the emotional wreckage that it put me through and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Um yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
it's such a good show. I enjoyed so much of it. I thought it was a really like I said, I think I'm realizing that like these body transmigration stories are something that I'm really
I
into. I think
swear.
they offer something that something about them is like really really compelling to me. So yeah, I don't know, not much else to say,
Mhm.
but yeah, my stand-in,
Mhm.
absolutely my second favorite show of the year, and it's up there. So I
Yeah.
almost put it at one. Like it was my number one for a long time, and
I
then
almost did
Mm.
too.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I tried to watch my stand-in, and I'm not sure why I couldn't finish it because it is typically a show that you would think I would like,
Mm,
but I don't know. There's something that just doesn't engage me, and I don't know if it was just the time I tried to watch it that I should just try again. But yeah, I like the quality of it,
mhm.
and the it's different than a lot of the other things we've seen. So, but yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Number one.
Drum roll
Um,
one.
my number one is Unknown.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, that's
okay.
unexpected, actually. Okay.
Hmm. I like that's why I'm saying like I was surprised by my own list.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
So Unknown to me, like it was such a good story that like had everything. Like there's a found family, there's growing up, and there it's just so full of life, and there's some angst, and there's some love, and there's a balance of everything. And I just love the and I usually don't like slow burns, but in this it was so engaging all the time that I didn't mind that nothing like basically happened until like later. I just it
Mhm.
gave the when they finally let go and like of everything. It just felt it felt like the tension and everything had built up so much that it was so gratifying
Mm,
once it happened,
mhm,
and so intimate, and like I believed it, and I believed their journey, and I believed everything that happened. um yeah, I just love every person that's in that show. Like every
mhm.
character was just they had their wrongs and they had their good sides, and it's just it felt they felt like real people, and I loved them all for their faults and everything.
Yeah,
So yeah, and I was so obsessed with it when it came out and I started watching it. I was obsessed.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
No, I I really enjoyed the show. It's definitely not one that I ever would have like probably chosen to watch on my own. We ended up
Mhm.
doing it for one of our reviews, and I was
Yeah.
very pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And I
Mhm.
agree with everything that you said, that like it just felt like a very like complete story through all the
Mhm.
characters and the journeys that they went on. Um but yeah, I did not expect it to be your number one. So like
Yeah,
that
right.
surprised
Yeah.
me.
I had to do some soul searching and I was looking at the list and I was just like, how am I gonna number this? And I was just going through it and I'm just like, there's nowhere else I can put this than at the top. It's just
Hmm.
it's giving me the most emotions. It's just it gave me the most of everything.
That's kind of how I felt with my number one too
Mhm.
when we get there. So I
Yeah.
feel you on that.
Mm,
Mhm. Okay,
okay.
Kayla.
My number one is predictable. It's Pit Babe. This is actually one that I'll never run out of things to talk about with.
Mhm.
Um, and I just realized that two of the directors, Pepsi and Com, I'm pretty sure they were
Mhm.
also the
Hmm.
directors on Kin Porsche. So I really love
Hmm.
their work.
Mm.
uh,
I
I'm really,
Pepsi also did my stand-in, I think.
I
So
think
that
so.
also adds
I
to
think
that.
so. I don't know. I love their directing, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
but Pit Babe, it's no surprise to anyone how batshit crazy this series made me. It like consumed my mind, body, and soul. And I feel
Mhm.
like only a toxic yaoi lover could come up with this story. Like it's so toxic yaoi, and I love it. I embrace it. Um, I like that like the combination of themes is also so out of the box. Like who thinks to put together Omegaverse and then racing and then like MK
Right.
Ultra and like superpowers. Like
Mhm.
it's just like a crazy combination of things that makes this story that I wouldn't have been able to think of. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
how they ended up um adapting this to a screen, but they did and I
Mhm.
love it.
It's 100% creative, and it helps that Pavel is in it.
That absolutely helps. Now, at the very least, it's like you have to give them credit for taking such a risk. I still don't know how they
Mhm.
found like
Absolutely.
sponsors for this.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but like I love all the characters in the show except for Tony, but literally everyone else. I love I love that even though there were like so many of them, they all have their distinct personalities. And even if they
Mhm.
like some of them didn't get a lot of screen time, you still kind of get what their deal is. Like you get who
Yeah.
they
Hmm.
are, where they're coming from, all of that. I do like vaguely remember calling out a plot hole or two. But I feel like none of that even mattered to me because I was just like so focused on how theatrical it was, because it's like one of those things where you just have to kind of accept it and just watch.
Be along for the journey. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One thing I haven't gotten to talk about with this series is how much I love North and Sonic. Like,
Mm.
I really, really hope we get more of them in season 2 because, like, I love the whole like unspoken romance thing. It's the same thing with like Tattoo and Aran, where like they don't explicitly state that anything's happening, but obviously something is. And I also love like all the moral dilemmas in it. Like a big theme in my top 3, I think, are morally gray characters.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like thought it was really interesting how you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of the character's actions to kind of be like, were they right for doing that? Were they wrong for doing that? Did they have a choice? Anything like that. Also, yes, Pavel's acting. 8 down.
Oh my
8
god, it
down.
was so good.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, Pavel. He might have made the
Travel.
series.
Yeah. 100%.
Man. The chemistry between, I mean, like him and Pooh is amazing. The chemistry between everyone is amazing. Like Jeff and Alon, especially for
Mm.
me.
They ended up being my faves too, which I did not expect.
I was not expecting it at all. I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna do this like stereotypical like age gap thing, but then it ended up
Mm-hmm.
not being too stereotypical. Like I really liked the
Mm-hmm.
way that they portrayed it, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they were my faves, definitely. Um Also, I haven't really talked about Pete and Wei. They had chemistry too, even though it obviously didn't work out
Mm.
between them for multiple reasons. But what else did I love about this series? I guess my last thing is like the setting. Like the settings were so cool. Like you
Mm-hmm.
had like the garage, the racetrack, Pavel's home in the
Oh
show,
my god, that
Babe's
house was
home,
wild.
which is also the restaurant from This Love Doesn't Have Long Beans. And then there was that diner that they always went to. I really want to
Oh
find it
yeah.
and go there. That was really cool. Uh, I guess this is just another one where I really like the world building, and I I wanted to see more world building. So I guess it's a good thing for me that there's going to be a season 2. I'm ready. I'm ready.
I am so curious to see like what season 2 is gonna do. Yeah, Pepe was such a ride. I had so much fun watching that show and tuning in every week to watch other people watch that show and just experience it as each episode was airing. Like it was just so much fun to watch while also being just like a really like interesting, compelling story, despite all of like you said, like these elements that you wouldn't expect to work together. And yeah, I just have love for like seeing the way that especially Pavel has talked about this show and how much love he has for this show and seeing like how emotional the whole Pip Babe experience has been for him and like for the entire cast. Like it's just like I always have love for shows that you can tell are also very meaningful to the cast that is a part of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Alexa, do you wanna
Yes.
wow
Round this
us?
out. I don't know if it'll wow anyone. I feel like I really expected that My Stand-In would be my number one show. And then I watched this show and like you said, Pixie, like the more I thought about it, I was like, there's just nowhere else on this list I can put this but number one. And that is Let Free the Curse of Taekwondo.
Right. I was
This
Yes.
waiting for that
show
one.
the emotional damage that this show did to me in the best possible way was just like I did not expect anything from it. I was obviously planning to tune in because it's a Huang Da-sul show. She was a director, and I've enjoyed everything that she's directed, but I didn't realize until it was actually out that it was like airing. So like I kind of just one day was like, oh, this started now. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
I had no idea what the plot of this show was. The
Yeah.
trailers did not give off nearly how intense it would be.
Mhm.
So imagine me watching like the first two episodes where you see like this cute like city guy who gets sent to do taekwondo in the countryside, and you see this like cute like youth romance blossoming, and then like the way you get hit over the head with, I
Mhm.
guess it's kind of worked into the first episodes, but like the reality of the parental abuse and how that is weaved into the entire story and how it influences every action and the fallout of the relationship that takes
Mhm.
place. It just like I was not prepared, but like in the best possible way. If there's a best way to be prepared for like parental abuse and how that impacts characters and how that influences a story. But yeah, this is just for me, it's a show about obviously how people find themselves again after leaving an abusive relationship or an abusive relationship ending, and navigating the impacts of that relationship on everything you do in
Mhm.
life. But it's also like, because we get this 12-year time jump, it's also a story of kind of coming to terms with not living up to the expectations you set for yourself or the way you
Mhm.
thought your life would go, which, as someone who just turned 30, that was hitting very hard for me at the point in time that I watched
Mhm.
it. I felt like I really related to Dohei, modern day Dohei, and being like, this is not at all like where I thought I would be, and kind of having to recalculate yourself as like an older, not even older adult, as an adult, an
Mhm.
actual adult, and kind of recalculate the expectations you set for your life as a teenager. Um, and then there's just this element of like, it's not too late to do that as well, which I thought was very impactful. And I think that was kind of one of the overarching themes of the show, was kind of like, I I hate to use the term rebirth because I don't necessarily know that that's how I would describe it, but just like this idea of being able to start over again and find a new path for yourself that fits where you are in your current life while letting go of the things that were tying you to your past. So, yeah, it
Mhm.
was just such a compelling and emotional character story for me. When I say talk about a character I was in the trenches for Dohei, and the actions, the choices he was making every single week. I was like writing paragraphs in our Discord server about like how his actions were influenced by like his parental abuse and the
Mhm.
influence that his dad had on him. And I there were so many times I was like, not even not trying to start beef, but like wanting to reply to people on Twitter being like, this is why this character is making these decisions. Like, it was so serious for me. Like, I wanted people to like, I don't know, I just wanted people to understand him, I think, because I this is
Mhm.
a character that I felt was extremely misunderstood by a lot of the audience. And so I just felt like very emotionally invested in the way he was being perceived and the way his
Mhm.
character was portrayed in the show. And I don't know, it was just, I think it is definitely probably my favorite Huang Da-sul show that I watched. And
Mhm.
just maybe it's a little bit of recency bias, but like when I was looking at my list and thinking about the shows that were like the most impactful on me this year, like that was the one that I
Mhm.
just kept saying, like, I can't put anything else in number one, because I just felt so much for that show while I was watching it so intensely. And I still, like, when I was thinking back on it, making my list, like, still was feeling those intense emotions about it, that
Mhm.
it had to be number one. And I
Mhm.
would obviously like be mindful of the trigger warnings, but I
Yeah.
think it did, because of the way a lot of the Korean BLs are released, it did kind of fly under the radar. So
Yeah.
it's one I would recommend
Mhm.
being mindful of the triggers, and that it is a show that's very heavily centered around parental abuse and how a character
Yeah.
navigates that. But if that's something you feel like you can watch, it's a show that I would 100%
Yeah.
recommend to everyone. And I just feel like the character growth and the character building was so gratifying by the time you got to the end of the story.
Mhm.
I cried so much watching that show. I cried watching the final scene. Oh my god, there was like so many tears watching that show. It just, yeah,
Yeah.
it really hit for me. So
Mhm.
I had to put it at my number one spot, and I did not.
Mhm.
I was trying to like put it at like 5 or 4 and like put something else, but it
Yeah.
had to go
It
there.
just didn't
Like,
fit. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So let free the curse of Taekwondo. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said. I think the only reason it's not on my top is because I had some issues following along the story that I was like confused at times,
Mm.
and I'm unsure if that's my fault or the story's fault.
Mm,
I think like I had a period this year that I had trouble concentrating
mm-hmm.
a lot, and I think that just when I was watching shows and I couldn't concentrate properly, I lost a lot of context.
Yeah. No, I get
Yeah.
that.
So, and that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, our honorable mentions. Should we just should I just go through mine and then
Yeah.
Kayla can go through hers? Yep.
Yeah. Just and
Mhm.
go
Just
through your
quickly.
whole.
Yeah. So my first one, this would be on the list if I had a second space or more space on it. I hear the sunspot,
Mm,
and I was
No.
late to watching it, but when I watched it, it's so good. It does a disability so good, and it's so heartwarming, and it's worth watching.
mm-hmm.
I also have at 25 in Akasaka.
I started that one but never
Oh.
finished it.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have Pit Babe for all the reasons.
Shout out.
I have Wandy Good Day because
Mm-hmm.
I liked it more than I expected. Like, it's not one of those shows that I would like rave about, but there was so much good in it, and it's just like the actors were great, like everything was great, and I just like it was different with the fighting and whatever. Yeah, it just
Exhausting. Mm-hmm.
it was just good.
Mm-hmm.
And last one, I put Playboy, and
Ooh, yeah.
yeah, I know. I'm kind of but it's I applaud the attempt they did. I applaud what they were trying to do. I think there were issues with the
Mm-hmm.
fact that the cast was too big, which made the story confusing,
Yes.
and it didn't lend you to um you didn't get like attached to the characters because you didn't have enough time with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they fall flat on their ass because there were too many people. But I I like what they were trying to do, and I think in BL we do need more adult themes done
Mm-hmm.
well. And when I say done well, I don't mean that it needs to be purified. It needs
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to be a little bit gritty and dirty, and like that's part of life.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that happens. It's reality. So yeah, I like what they were trying for, but the cast should have been smaller. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
Solid list.
Oh my gosh. I'm now I'm laughing at my own. Um okay, so honorable mention, I also had Wandy Good Day. Um
Mhm.
Mm,
because this series, I feel like, as a lot of GMM TV series do, it
Mhm.
started off really, really strong, and then it kind of
mm-hmm.
fell
Mhm.
victim to the
Kind of,
lazy
yeah,
writing.
yeah.
I thought there was like I wasn't a big fan of the pacing, and I felt like there was a lot of
Yeah.
unnecessary filler. But the
Mhm.
elements
Mm,
of the show that I liked, I honestly
Mhm.
really loved. Like
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Cher and Oi gave me major second couple syndrome. Oh my
Oh, they were
god.
so good.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. I love their difference in personalities, like Cher being the calm,
Mhm.
reasonable one, and then Oi is kind of like always acting on impulse. Um,
Mhm.
I really loved Oi. I related to him a lot as an oldest sibling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And canonically asexual character is a big
Yes.
deal.
Yes. Also
um,
that. I forgot to mention that, but yes. Thank you.
honestly, we should have gotten more of him because
I
he was
wanted
Yeah.
to
kind
see
of
so much
just
more of his trying to date. Yeah,
like,
and
Yeah.
navigating
yeah,
being ace. Yeah.
yeah, he was kind of like a plot device for
Yeah.
Yoryak and Wandi's relationship progressing.
Mhm.
But I was kind of like, what about his life? Like, I want to know what he has going on because it's the concept of like a was he like a sex therapist? Was that his official
Yeah.
job?
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
And then like being asexual, like that's
An
so
asexual sex
good. What
Yes.
do
therapist.
you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The
Someone needs to make
best
a
thing.
show about that, like an asexual.
Yeah.
Give him a spinoff. Like that would be such a
Yeah.
good show. An
For real.
asexual sex therapist also navigating like dating while being ace. Like that would be such a good show.
Mhm.
Oh
Where
my
is it?
god.
Someone give him
Also
his spinoff.
Drake.
Mm-hmm.
Enough
Drake
said.
as a lead and oh my gosh,
Mhm.
I can
We need
imagine
it.
that.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that just like that character existing was already like so good, such a great addition.
Yeah.
I just like wish they would have did more with
Done more
him.
with
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um another one that I unexpectedly liked is the Japanese BL Love is a Poison.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
on Netflix. The way I
Yeah, I was gonna
discovered
say
it
that's
was
Netflix one. Yeah.
Netflix. um it's just like it's silly. It's really silly.
Mhm.
Like it's just like a lawyer and this like scammer who end up living together. So you got like the forced cohabitation thing kind of. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
comedy and the lawyer guy is in this dilemma, like he's torn because the scammer helps him to like win these cases by getting evidence a shady way, but also he doesn't really fully trust him, so there's like an element
Mm.
of that going on. And it's just it's fun and simple and an easy watch if you have a free
Mm.
afternoon. Some other ones, I totally forgot that this ended last year, but The Sign.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
Yeah, oh,
yeah.
really
sorry. Yeah,
like
I should have
The
mentioned that too.
Sign.
Pixie put the sign on her
I put
favorite
it on my
BLs
list
of
last
20
year, so
when like only 2 episodes had aired. So
Right.
I did well
It
this year. I didn't put like a earring show now.
well, that's what I was
It's
expecting the
so
heart
funny.
killers to be on your list, honestly.
But yeah, this one ended
Mm.
in February, and I wasn't
Mhm.
like crazy about the ending. It kind of felt anticlimactic, but the rest of the
Mm.
show I really
Yeah,
liked. I liked the whole crime, mystery, murder thing that was going on.
the chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And
I
then I
I
had
honestly, I just
yeah.
want to I just want to watch shows where boys are sort of like military training.
Pixie's here for the military propaganda? Question mark.
No, not that, but watching boys like in the military, it's there's something about like the uniform and a lot of
It
boys in
was
a room
Yeah.
very
together.
like it was very
I mean,
like
it's very
manly
homoerotic, okay?
man, I guess. It was very
Manly
masculine.
man. Mm. Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm. Um, I also had Love for Love's Sake, but I feel like I
Mm.
wanna just, like, shout out all of Korean BL last year
Mm.
because I also
There were
loved
some
The
really
Time
good
of
ones.
Fever and, Let Free the Curse of Taekwondo, like, those are all
Mhm.
kind of, like, on a similar level to me. And
Mhm.
then, oh my gosh, I put the Shell and Deck supercut of Playboy.
Not the super cut.
Oh my
It had a lot of redeeming qualities. I agree with
god.
Pixie. Like it the themes were there. I just my
Yeah.
thing personally was the writing. I really felt
Mhm.
like they dropped the ball with like all of the reveals that were a
Yeah.
little too predictable, honestly.
Mhm.
Right? I said like I predicted like the whole fucking show before I have it on camera.
uh,
Yeah.
man. That's
Mm.
all. That is all. That is all.
Okay. My honorable mentions, I had Only Boo. This is the one that was almost in my top 5, but We Are has nepotism because of Oom Boom, so it got kicked to the honorable mention list. But I agree with everything you guys said about it. I loved everything about that show, and I can't wait to see C. Keen's next project.
Oh,
Like, I'm
yes,
very excited about
definitely.
them.
Mhm.
So yeah, Only Boo. I had this one, I don't know that anybody else watched, but I surprisingly really enjoyed City of Stars. It was a Star Hunter show
Mm,
about like a celebrity and I think he was like a programmer. But it was just like a really simple watch. It like was not anything like groundbreaking, but I just really enjoyed like the chemistry and
mm,
how they like developed the relationship. I really enjoyed the secondary pairing. Um and yeah, I just had a lot of fun when I was watching that show. And it was one that when I was like thinking back on when I watched this year, I was like, yeah, I enjoyed that one. So I wanted to shout out that one. I think it's one of the better Star Hunter shows that I've watched, and I actually
yeah.
finished it, which I tend to not finish a lot of Star Hunter shows. So, that says a lot for me. um, but yeah. I had Love in the Big City, the series, not the movie. I haven't
Yes.
watched the movie
Yeah.
yet.
Mm, it was
I
a good
loved a lot about
series.
that. I think it did something really cool, and it was really,
Mm,
really massive project to come out in Korea. And I really, really enjoyed it all around. I just like some of the other Korean BLs that I watched this year better, which were the
mhm.
ones that made my list. Jack and Joker, I also really wanted to put this one on my top 5, but there were just some other shows that edged it out for
No
me. But
room.
yeah, I agree with everything that you guys said about it and everything we talked about in our deep dive. Such a great show, and I really hope we see another project from Yin and War. But if this
Yeah.
is the last one, then like they really went out on a bang, and I'm glad that they put so much into producing this show.
Mhm.
Um, then I also had I Hear the Sunspot on mine.
Ooh.
I didn't watch a lot of Japanese BL this year. I
Mhm.
only watched like a handful of other ones besides this one, but I really, really love this show. I read the
Right.
first volume of the original manga.
Manga? Mhm.
So, I like that I went in knowing some of the like original material, and I thought the
Yeah.
adaptation was pretty solid, and I really, really
Yeah,
liked
it
the
did it
actors and the
justice.
chemistry.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm.
And then my final one, which I have such mixed feelings, this show would have been easily at the top of my list if they hadn't fucked up the ending, and that is Last
Oh,
Twilight.
yeah. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
I
right.
figured. Yeah.
I debated putting it. It did technically finish. I didn't even realize that it technically finished in 2024. I
Mhm.
debated putting it in my list because I loved the first 9 episodes of that show were so
Yeah.
fucking good. If it had ended there, it probably
Mhm.
would have been my top show of
They dropped the
2024.
ball.
But I am still so upset by the ending
Yeah.
to this day. It just tainted the entire show for me.
Yeah.
And I know not everyone felt badly about the ending, and I've seen like
Mm.
some different like perspectives on it that like I didn't think about
Mm.
at the time of watching. But when I
Yeah.
still think about it, I just did not like the way they
Yeah.
executed Day getting his visions back and the implications that were
Mm.
made with that. And it felt like
Yeah.
it undid so much of his character growth throughout the show.
Mm.
And it
A
just left
message show.
such a stain on the entire series for me, which is so depressing
Yeah.
because I loved it so much for the first three
Yeah.
quarters of the show. But I
Yeah.
did want to shout it out because the first 3 quarters were so, so good in my
Mm.
opinion. Like it was such a strong show up until that
Yeah.
point, but I couldn't put it
If
on my list.
If anyone wants to hear our deep dive into that, we did an episode with Freddie
hmm
talking about Last Twilight. So definitely go check that out because we go
hmm
really in depth to what
I
our
also
issues were.
Yeah, I reacted to the whole show on Patreon, and
Yeah.
when I watched the finale, I literally went back and re-recorded my afterthoughts the day after because the more I thought about the ending, the angrier it had made me. So like I finished my reaction. I don't even remember what I said there. I think
Mhm.
I just had like a very neutral stance on it, and then like I thought
Yeah.
about it overnight, and when I was editing the reaction,
Mm.
I was like, actually, fuck this, I'm really mad, and I recorded like my final thoughts about the finale, and used that in the reaction as
Yeah.
my final thoughts instead. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
really upsetting to
It's
me that it
understandable.
ended the way it did, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's my final honorable mention. It could have
Mm,
been everything, but
could have been, would have been, wasn't. Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
like, in general, we had a good year, but it was a year of good BLs and not like
Life
fantastic
changing.
BLs.
Yes,
I
I
think
agree
Yeah.
a
with
lot
that.
of the other years, it's been like very, very obvious what like the top BLs of the year was.
Mhm.
This year, it's just been solid BLs, which made my list really hard to make.
Mhm.
But
That's exactly how I feel.
yeah,
Yeah, last year, like I've said this, like my favorite show was blown out of the water by everything else, and it was like a life-changing show for me.
mhm,
So like coming into BL in 2024 and coming off of that high, I'm just like, yeah, I liked a lot of stuff, but
mhm,
nothing made me feel that way. So,
yeah,
maybe now that there's been a year between I Feel You Linger in the Air and everything else,
yeah,
2025 will see some higher peaks for me, but I did enjoy a lot, but yeah, it's just
mhm,
like nothing was really like this is the best thing I've ever seen for me.
yeah, life changing,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. So yeah. Any last words?
No. Just
no,
curious to
I don't
see
think
what
so.
all of our viewers have on their
Yeah.
top lists. So be sure to share them with
Yes.
us. Share what you thought of our lists in a nice manner. Like, don't go ragging on a
Mhm.
show that someone liked because you didn't think
Yeah.
it was that great. But yeah, I'm curious
Mhm.
to see what everyone's list looks like, what you thought of our lists, all that fun stuff. So,
Yeah. We're all about positivity. So share what you love.
hmm hmm
Mhm.
hmm
And yeah, down in the comments on YouTube, or if you're watching this on Patreon, leave us a comment there. If you're not on Patreon, you could be. There's a lot of content there already. You have reactions from me and Kayla and Alexa and Heather. Um, and there we do like semi-monthly Patreon exclusive episode where we talk sometimes about topics given by patrons, other times topics that we want to talk about. So there's a lot of exciting content, and we do trailers, reactions, and we do everything. So you can support us there,
hmm
and it really helps out. And if you can't support that way, which is fair in this like economy, sharing the episode and watching it fully through on YouTube, commenting, liking, really, really helps. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye bye. You said we encourage positivity, and then I was like, about the things that other people enjoy. Like sometimes, like positive about other people's likes, but sometimes we're a
Yeah,
little bit mean about
yeah.
other things.